Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Steve Barrett, and welcome to our webinar today, Harnessing Your Potential with Apprenticeships. For the next hour or so, I'm going to be introducing you to some of our fine apprenticeships or apprentices, and walking you through a little bit about what's going on within the energy and utility sector and why you should potentially choose a career with us. So, if I just move on to the next slide. So the agenda that we've got today, first of all, I'll do a 10-minute welcome and introduction. I'm then going to bring our panelists into the discussion. So we've got Millie, Jacob and Catherine from across industry. And then I'll close the presentation off at around 1 to 2 and summarize some of the points which have been brought out today. Now, you'll notice down the side of your screen, there is the option for entering questions into the chat function. So please do use the function throughout the session, and we'll be coming to those questions as we get a little bit further into the talking to the apprentices. Now, as we go through this, the next part, there is a video which we're going to play, and hopefully with the aid of technology and without the aid of a safety net, that does work. So I'll move on to that in a second, but what I wanted to do first is just take you through a little bit of the statistics and some of the challenges which we're looking at across the energy and utility sector at the moment, and really why it's potentially a good choice for you when you're looking for your next career move. And you may have or may not have heard in the news about some of the significant challenges facing the sector to deliver the government's net zero ambitions and also mitigate that risk of climate change. There is so much investment which is going on in some of that critical national infrastructure at the moment. And you may have seen around the regulation side, but we reckon there's about £320 billion worth of spend up to 2030. So in terms of new jobs, which are coming in all sorts of different areas, I'll talk through those in a second, there is plenty to be interested in terms of different roles and different opportunities across the industry. So the scale of that challenge over the next 5-6 years means that we have to attract around 312,000 people into the workforce, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But what we're going to do today is really explore how we can look at some of those jobs in a little bit more detail and try and get under the skin a little bit with our apprentices and find out what their experiences were. So I talked about growth. Over the next 5 years, there's potentially around 32% growth, and that's based on the organisations which we're going to talk about today, some of the power and some of the gas organisations delivering that power and gas to your homes, as well as the water organisations delivering clean water and taking away your wastewater. What does that mean then? There's about 312,300 new people required into the industry, and that is growth. Which is really unprecedented. We haven't seen that level of growth for many, many years. So in terms of opportunities and where you would want to go as a career, then there is plenty to be interested in. So what does that mean then in terms of the types of roles that we're looking at? Well, if you look right away across that spectrum, across the leadership, technical, professional and sector entry, you can see some of the numbers on the screen there, and there is significant growth. And what you have to remember is around those sector entry roles, each time there is somebody in one role, in perhaps a sector entry role, they would need to move on to those perhaps technical professional and then into leadership roles. So there is a constant influx or a requirement of both apprentices and graduates which are required in the industry over the next 5 or 6 years. So there is a significant opportunity to be going to. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to play a video, fingers crossed the video is going to work before I introduce our panelists in. But please do take that opportunity then to look at use the chat function and drop some questions in. And I'll try and get to those questions before the end of the session, as I say. So let me play this video. Fingers crossed it's going to work. Excellent. So it worked. I'm delighted. So what I'd like to do now is just to invite our panelists to pop their cameras on, and I'll pop the slides back up. If I possibly can find them. Start presentation. So if I can just ask our apprentice to come on screen, turn the cameras on, and we'll get going with the introduction. So I mentioned earlier that we have some apprentices joining us. I'm delighted to welcome Millie, Jacob, and Catherine to the discussion. And I'm hoping Millie's going to appear out of nowhere in just a second. She's not appeared on my screen yet.
It's not let me turn my camera on for some reason.
Oh dear, but you're definitely there.
Right,
so what I'll do then, I'll come to Jacob first, and Jacob looks shocked. And Jacob, if you can just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some of the questions which we've got. Over to you.
Of course, yep. So, hi everyone, my name's Jacob Crawford, and I'm a trainee project manager with SSEN Transmission. That's Scottish Southern Electricity Networks, and I'm currently working on transmission projects where I support the planning, coordination and delivery of these sort of large infrastructure schemes that help keep the power flowing to homes and businesses. So I joined through the apprenticeship route, but before I started my apprenticeship, I went to university. I went to Glasgow University. I done aerospace engineering, and then rather than going straight into a job within the engineering side of things, I decided I'd like to look into management. And the apprenticeship route's perfect because I'm learning on the job whilst developing my skills, and I gain qualifications at the same time. And I really enjoy that sort of mix of technical understanding, problem solving, and teamwork. And no 2 days are ever the same, really. So yeah, I'm here to just share a bit about my journey so far and what working in the energy sector is really like, and then hopefully you understand some of the different routes and opportunities that are available. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jacob. And yeah, great to get a little bit of background on both yourself and the organisation. Catherine, if I can come to you next then, just introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Catherine Crees. I'm a connections design engineer for Northern Powergrid. I've only just passed my apprenticeship, so I passed my apprenticeship back in November. So I came through on the foundation degree traineeship. So that I did my foundation degree as part of my apprenticeship. I knew from very early on I didn't want to go to university traditionally. I prefer a mix of like on-site learning and by the book learning. So I knew I wanted an apprenticeship. The cherry on the cake with this one was my degree was included within my apprenticeship. So as part of that, we came into the business of Northern Powergrid, which is all about electricity and getting customers on. And we got to see the business as a whole and then kind of go into our roles. So I got to see all different sides of the businesses, from how we deliver projects to how we design them, and then I ended up in design.
Fantastic. Thanks, Catherine. And I'm delighted to see that Millie has managed to overcome the technology.
Finally got it working.
and make it on screen. So Millie, do you want to do the same? Introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Millie Jones. I'm 21 and I'm from Pontypridd in South Wales. I'm an asset apprentice with Wales and West Utilities, working in the multiple occupancy building and distribution team. I joined straight after finishing my A-levels, and like a lot of apprentices, I started off by doing plenty of listening and watching and shadowing of my colleagues. But that early hands-on experience and learning was such a big part of understanding how everything fits together. But fast forward to now, I'm in my 3rd year of my apprenticeship and I'm carrying out on-site surveys independently, which is something I never imagined doing so confidently when I first started. My long-term aim is to become a fully qualified asset surveyor. And so in that role, I'd be inspecting, assessing and documenting the condition of the gas infrastructure that supplies multiple occupancy buildings, for example, flats. And that also includes things like risers, manifolds, valves, and all the equipment that needs to be safe, compliant, and accurately recorded as well. But it's been an amazing journey so far, and I'm really excited to share more about my experience with you guys today.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Millie, and everyone else. So I thought I'd just kind of ask a few questions, and bear in mind what we're trying to get to here is really what it's like to be an apprentice in the energy and utilities industry. And just really to start out, I mean, how did you decide on which apprenticeship to study? I mean, was it a family connection? Was it something you always wanted to do, or was it something that after looking for jobs, something came up? Was it something as simple as that? Millie, shall I come to you first?
Yeah. So I chose this apprenticeship because the role itself, well, it sort of stood out to me, really. It matched the type of work that I was interested in, which is a mixture of being on and off site, and it offered a chance to build practical experience whilst learning as well. Personally, I've always been quite a hands-on learner, and this apprenticeship allowed me to do that. The location was very convenient, which was a bonus because I'm based in Newport, so it's not too far from where I live. And after researching the organisation, I felt confident that I would be well supported and in a good place to develop my skills. Many people told me that Wales and West was a good company to work for and offered high quality apprenticeships. And then my interest was focused on that apprenticeship then. There wasn't really a family connection or anything like that prior. It was mainly a combination of the job description and the learning opportunities that drew me in, really.
Brilliant. Thanks, Millie. And I've heard it so many times about that on and off site, that that kind of that value that you perceive that you get going into a job. And I think people are looking for a much more of a balance. And I think that's great to hear from a Wales and West perspective, I suppose, about the good company as well as good company to work for, and the location. It's always going to be we generally find that sometimes graduates, I guess, Jacob, for yourself going off to university, we see a slightly different trend with apprentices, in fact, and they tend to be work in a much more localized area. So it's an interesting kind of thing which we'll have to balance in the future. So with that in mind, then, Catherine, shall I come to you next? What about yourself?
So how I found the apprenticeship I wanted to, or I ended up going for, was way back in secondary school. I went to a Women in Engineering's Day, and came away from that day going, oh, I really fancy a career in engineering. I didn't quite know what sector I wanted to go into, but I had a family friend who worked for Northern Powergrid, and they let me know about this apprenticeship. And from about then on, I was like, that's what I want to do. So they told me absolutely everything about the apprenticeship, told me about the good opportunities and what I would get out of it, and how supported you are at Northern Powergrid as an apprentice. So I kind of found myself really wanting to go for that one, and then I ended up applying and getting in, which was really good for me.
Fantastic. I think you're jumping into my next question here about the company, why you went to work for the company, but that's fine. We'll come back to those. And Jacob, what about yourself?
Yep. I mean, I've always been someone who enjoys understanding how things work and being hands-on and whatnot. So that's why I went and studied engineering. But I like, organised things, and the idea of being part of something bigger than just sort of one small task. So yeah, when I saw the trainee project manager apprenticeship with my company, I kind of brought both sides together, and it was a mix of realising that project management isn't just sitting behind a desk. As Millie said, there's a lot of site work, a bit of travelling, there's planning, problem solving, working with others, engineers, contractors, and all sorts of different teams when you're trying to deliver this massive multi-billion-pound project. So that really appeals to me, and then it gives me a lot of job satisfaction, which is something I was really looking for when looking for a job. You know, you're part of these massive projects. At the end of the day, they upgrade the grid for the future. They keep power flowing to people's homes currently, and we're moving into that sort of net zero 2030 kind of all renewables zone. So it's good to be a part of that.
Brilliant, thanks, Jacob. Look, and I might as well, whilst you got the microphone on, I'll ask the elephant in the room. That going from a graduate into an apprenticeship role, or going from a graduate, what was in your mind thinking about that? Was it about the opening which came up at Scottish Southern, or was it about something else which you had in terms of, because I think people are always juggling that sometimes, aren't they? You know, should I go for a graduate program? You know, should I go to university? Should I go and do an apprenticeship? So what was that in your decision-making process?
I think it was a bit of a career shift, if I'm honest. A lot of the guys I went to uni with, guys and girls, they went into graduate engineering jobs, and that was really the only path related to engineering. At the moment, it seems as though to get into project management, you sort of start off at the bottom. So you start as an assistant project manager, and there's really no other way about getting into it. So I kind of thought I had to do an apprenticeship because I didn't have any working experience related to management or utilities or anything like that. So in a way, I mean, I've got no regrets about it. I love what I do. Going from uni into an apprenticeship, you do take a little bit of a pay hit that you might have been earning a wee bit more, but long term, it ends up working out the same, and totally worth it. You know, I'd say go for it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's a very mature thought process there, isn't it? Because you do have to think about the long term, and I think you know, project management is an excellent career choice. You know, and you know, I think there's huge things that you can do with that. But then with that engineering angle as well, I think that's a strong set of skills there. Okay, look, that's great. I was going to ask next about the company. Why did you go and work for the company? You know, what's the opportunities that come up there? But I think we can probably move on from that, because I think most people have said about how great their companies are. But why the sector? Why energy and utilities? Because I always say to people, you know, we're operating in a hyper competitive environment. Let's face it, right? We are competing for the brightest, the best talent out there, because we have to deliver a huge project on behalf of government, of citizens, you know, our children, our children's children, because we want to achieve this net zero. We want to mitigate the risk of climate change. You know, the investment in things like, I know we haven't got any water organisations on today, but the investment in things like reservoirs, the investment in potentially carbon capture and storage, things like the hydrogen networks, but also the great grid upgrades. You know, they're thinking about some of the transmission networks and having transmission systems. So, you know, when you have those smart systems within that infrastructure, there is so much to go at. But a lot of people don't know about it, you know, but they'll hear some of these big brands on television and they'll generally go off towards those. So why the energy and utilities sector? And Catherine, can I come to you first?
Yeah, so the energies and utilities sector really was quite appealing to myself. I really liked, especially in the role I've gone into, I've always liked maths at school. So I wanted to do something with maths and things like that. But also it was a career path that I knew there was always going to be a job in it. So there's that longevity. It's such an evolving industry that there's always going to be something new. So I just knew there was a job there for myself. So that's one of the main reasons I've come into this industry.
Fantastic. And likewise, Millie, you still with us? Sorry, you're dotting in and out there. You're all right.
Oh, yeah. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. Oh,
so
why the energy and utility sector for you?
So I've always been interested in engineering and the utility sector since, well, primary school, maybe a bit later on in secondary school. I did it through GCSEs and A-levels. And I enjoyed learning more about it. I want to be part of a change. What really sparked my interest was seeing how the sector is constantly evolving, especially with a focus on sustainability and improving infrastructure. It really made me realise that it wasn't just a job. It was a chance to be a part of something meaningful and long-term.
Yeah.
I didn't come from a background where the sector was talked about a lot, to be honest. So discovering it for myself through exploring different roles and reading about different things within the sector and researching really opened my eyes to different opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew it was something I wanted to be a part of.
Yeah. Fantastic. It's great to hear, isn't it? Yeah, I think that, it's kind of getting up out of bed and having a purpose, it's part of something bigger, isn't it? Yeah, that's great to hear. Thanks very much. And Jacob, yourself?
Yep. Well, I think it's a really interesting question, actually, because it's one of these things that almost everyone takes for granted, that we've got electricity and water, and it's very, very stable, and you don't really think, oh, well, how does it get here? How's it made? All this kind of stuff. And personally, when I was at school, you didn't really hear about it, career-wise. You'd hear about doctors, teachers, engineers, that sort of thing, but not about the utilities. And I only became sort of more aware of it when I started doing my own research. And it was just seeing how, how does electricity go from a wind turbine to your house, and then all the steps in between. It's the massive scale of everything, how you can send it from country to country or over continents. I think it's just absolutely fascinating, and it's such an important part of the world we live in just now, especially with everything's technology. You rely on it so much, so it's really important that we keep developing it and getting new people to come into it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, you I maybe show my age here. Well, it's not that long ago, I suppose. But in terms of the when we got hit by the pandemic and COVID, and when you're in the workplace, certainly the energy and utilities workers were recognised as key workers. And you often think about doctors, and and I'm not saying they were absolutely on the front line with the NHS, etc. But certainly in terms of keeping clean water, heating on and power going to the hospitals, absolutely critical services in making sure that we're delivering those that critical national infrastructure. And I think that's a really big part of what we need to do, and how do we bring those people in then to make sure we continue to have a healthy pipeline of talent coming into industry. So look, thanks very much for that. And in terms of, since you've joined the organizations that you've joined, I mean, what's been the biggest or the biggest positive highlight for you as since you've come in? I mean, has anything really exciting happened? Or it may even be just getting onto the program or going out to the workplace and meeting your team that you're working with, because you go through a heck of a lot of training, and then suddenly you arrive in the workplace and you're like, oh God, I hope it's really good. I hope it's enjoyable. So yeah, what's been kind of your biggest moment in your career so far?
Well, I think it's been all the little things. So you're planning, you're looking at risks and schedules, and then slowly the project's moving forward, and then all of a sudden you go to a site or something, and then it's all kind of came together into this big puzzle almost. You're putting the pieces together slowly, and the satisfaction you get, that sometimes it can be quite demotivating. You're sitting at your desk and you're typing away at spreadsheets and you're thinking you're getting nowhere, and then all of a sudden you see it all comes to fruition. So I think that's probably the best feeling working here. And then for me specifically, just having that variety, no 2 days or no 2 weeks are the same. There's always new challenges. It's a case of problem solving every day, and communicating with people and trying to make things work and coming up with creative solutions. And I love that aspect of the job. Brilliant.
And Catherine, yourself?
Yeah, fine. For me, one of the biggest positives of coming into the career was meeting the team and seeing how supportive they are. I've in my role where I've landed after my apprenticeship, I've got such a supportive team. They helped me get through the last year of my apprenticeship. So when I was going through all the testing, they're really, really supportive. But just with designing schemes, you can get some really, really tricky schemes. And when you finally crack and get the solution, there is really no better feeling.
Brilliant. And oh gosh, what's happening there? And Millie, my apologies.
Yeah, my highlight is same as Catherine's, to be honest. It's got to be the support from my team. Everyone has been so welcoming and very patient with me and willing to guide me, which has made settling so much easier. They've trusted me to take on real responsibilities, even as an apprentice. And it feels great to know that my work has an impact and I'm contributing meaningfully towards the team. Also, having a chance to get involved with extracurricular activities. So I'm a part of iGEM, and they've helped me understand the role even better. And also I get to go to fancy galas and award ceremonies, which makes things interesting as well and fun.
Fantastic. So do you want to tell everyone what iGEM is, just in case they're wondering what that is?
Yes, it's a gas institution, and they help make events and make gas more aware, and people can join and be a part. So I'm part of the Welsh section, so we have meetings regularly. And so, for example, we just had the iGEM dinner, which is a charity dinner to raise money for a chosen charity. And it's good. It's good to be involved in.
Fantastic, yeah. We work quite closely with iGEM, in fact, Institute of Gas Engineering Managers, really good at doing all that standard stuff and making it all work between people working on the front line. So people come into your house, working on your gas cooker and the like. So yeah, lots of stuff going on in there. Fantastic. So look, I think in terms of, I always think, what would I have told myself 40 years ago, I think, since I started work. I'm not sure how long it is, actually. It's quite a long time anyway. But what would you tell your younger self? I mean, how would you advise people that are thinking about coming into the career? What should they be doing? What should they, in terms of preparation or getting themselves on the right courses or just speaking to people? Is there any advice that you would give your younger self coming through? So, Catherine, shall I come to you first on this one?
Yeah, so my advice to people thinking about the choice between apprenticeships and universities is definitely think about what you want to do at the end, or what your end goal is for a career. Because oftentimes there's an apprenticeship for anything now, and there's some really good ones, and it's just worth researching them. And then, especially with an apprenticeship, there's so many positives, and there will be some hard times, but it's just push through them and try and take on as much knowledge as you can, and just you'll be fine and you'll smash it.
Thanks, Catherine. And Jacob?
Yeah, so first of all, if you're thinking about it, I say go for it, but you don't need to have your whole career mapped out before applying for apprenticeships. I think most companies are pretty flexible with it. Within my company, I'm on track to becoming a project manager, but if I wanted to, I could go into project planning, I could go into project engineering, I could go down any career path somewhat related, and you get to dip in and out of all these different roles, and you can see what they're actually like. So at first you might want to be a project manager, and then 2 years later, 3 years later, you might decide, it's not for you, but doesn't mean you have to leave the company and start fresh. I think as well, when applying for these sort of things, you don't have to worry about, have I got the qualifications, have I got this? Because I think it's more about the mindset, does your mindset, does your skill set suit the company that you're applying for, rather than am I experienced enough? Because the whole point of the apprenticeship is to gain the experience.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's a really good point you make there, isn't it? It's about making sure that get yourself on an apprenticeship program, it gives you a really good start. But once you're in one of these really big organisations, then you're right, there are options which are available to you, and perhaps it's not just about staying on one career path all of your lives. And I think that's been true of many people. If you look at some of the careers of the people that have made it to chief executive, they probably started in one part, operations, and moved through maybe into finance, or maybe into, again, project management, that type of thing. So therefore you do have but there are career pathways within organizations, and as well as the sector as well, because you have to think a transmission network in Scotland is not identical, but it's very similar to National Grid in England, and and the other transmission network in Scotland as well. So Scottish Power and SSE, as well as National Grid. So there's a number of options there as well, and likewise with with gas organisations. So the gas distribution networks, the roles are quite similar across the piece, but they're slight geographical differences, obviously, which suit some better than others. But really good point there. And Millie, from yourself, what would you have said to yourself 5 years ago?
I would say absolutely go for it. I think being a part of the utilities and energy sector is such a great way to start a career, especially through an apprenticeship. I'd also say my biggest advice is to just be yourself and show genuine interest in the role, because enthusiasm goes such a long way. And as Jacob said, don't worry about knowing anything. Just focus on showing you're willing to learn, and you'll pick up the knowledge as you go. I'd also say ask loads of questions through the interview and application stage. Shows confidence and helps you to understand if the apprenticeship is right for you as well, because interviews aren't just about them picking you. It's about also you choosing the right place to grow as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Millie. And I think you're right. Questioning as much as you can is really important, and I think it's something that somebody taught me when I first started out on my career. I think it's really important. You get to a point where you've been in a business for too long to ask those perhaps what would be perceived as stupid questions, but you just keep asking those questions, because the information which you get is invaluable. And I think the experience which people have within the organisation, and certainly as you go through an apprenticeship program, you may have a mentor or a coach that works with you as well. And actually the experience or the tacit knowledge which they will have just in their mind, as opposed to that explicit stuff which you'll read in the manuals and the operating procedures within your business. There's a good mix of information to be had there, and therefore gaining that experience over time will put you in good stead for the future. So I think that's really important. Okay, so look, let's just move on to the next question. Can I just remind attendees as well to pop any questions they may have in the chat, and then I'll come to them in a second as I approach the end of my structured questions, but obviously hoping to make this interactive as we possibly can, so that would be appreciated. So look, we're really keen as a sector to make sure that we are reflecting the demographics which we serve, and therefore thus making sure that the energy and utilities industry is representative of our customers. So therefore, we're driving for a more diverse workforce, and the evolution, it's coming, but it does take time, because fortunately, so many people stay in industry for a very long time. So energy and utilities has an excellent retention rate, and people do tend to stick with us for a very long time. But what that means is perhaps historically, you would have had a very male-dominated workforce. We're certainly seeing changes in that, and improving diversity right the way across all elements, including neurodiversity, race, religion, and all sorts. So my question really to the panel is, we're putting a really strong emphasis on this. So do you see the workplace that you're in becoming more diverse? And what would you say to someone that perhaps is thinking about industry, but they're concerned about if it's not perhaps as diverse enough for them? So shall I come to you first again, Millie?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a positive progress since joining. One of the first things I noticed was how much more open and inclusive the environment is compared to what I expected from the sector. There's a real focus on encouraging younger people, women and those from different backgrounds to join. And you spend a lot of your time in the workplace, And so you want it to be somewhere where you feel welcomed and supported. I've also seen more conversations around inclusion, and it's not just a tick box exercise, but part of everyday discussions, training, team culture, and people genuinely want to make the industry more diverse and future focused.
Brilliant, thanks, Willie. That's great to hear, isn't it? I think if you're seeing a change since you've been there, and I think we can only continue to push that forward. And I think the your perception, specifically down there on the shop floor, thinking about how you're feeling about your own sector, I think is really important. So so I think that's good to hear if you're feeling that change from where you are. And Jacob, if I come to you next, if I could, please.
Yep, I've noticed that there's a real focus at work on creating this environment where different people and backgrounds are sort of welcome. We get very regular training and sort of team get-togethers where we emphasise DIE, diversity, inclusion, equity, and it's not just sort of talked about. You see it in how the teams work. How the people treat each other, and how opportunities are given to the new apprentices and new starters. I mean, there's people from all walks of life, really. And I suppose as well, a big part of the people we communicate with are our consultants internationally. So we have consultants at a really massive office in India. We've got offices in Indonesia, South America, Brazil, that kind of thing. And obviously these people are from different cultures, completely other side of the planet kind of thing. And just seeing how accepted they are, as they should be, and how comfortable everyone is working with them, it's really good to see. Yeah.
Thanks, Jake. That's a really good angle, actually, isn't it? It is embracing that international workforce, as well as we obviously need to be in the UK trying to grow our own talent, and certainly as part of the government asking questions about what's the workforce look like in the future, and where are we in terms of scalability, and do we need to bring in international workers is an angle. But I think as long as we're feeling that change, that positive trend towards being welcoming and inclusive and the diverse workforce, then I think we've got to be, it's a good thing, we're heading in the right direction. So thanks for that. And finally, Catherine, how about yourself? Yeah,
so there's a lot more diversity in the workplace than what I thought when I first came into it. I kind of expected to be in an office really with like all men, and I'm not. And it was at the start quite a way I perceived what I was going to go into. It was a nice change. There's so much inclusivity in this workplace that we're in, and I think in the sector as well. We all want to work together as a sector, and having as many people from different diverse backgrounds gives us such like different angles to look at solutions. And it really just takes one person to make a change. So if people aren't sure, that they feel like it's not a very diverse workplace, it becomes a very diverse workplace when everyone's got these different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think you're right. And quite often, I suppose, I don't think one solution solves everything, though. But I think, that combination of people working together, certainly within energy and utility skills, we run a measurement framework each year, and we look at what the diversity is of both leadership and across the sector. And the results, they're not breathtaking, they're not changing hugely, but they are changing, they are shifting in the right direction. So that's a really positive thing. And certainly on the leadership side as well, we are seeing more women in board positions and more diversity in board positions as well. And first line managers as well, I should say, and also working down into supervisory levels and an operative level. So we're seeing a really good trend, a good shift. But someone's mentioned there, I think Anthony has mentioned in the chat, there's still not enough diversity. Anthony, you're absolutely right. There's still not enough diversity. We need to keep working at that. And part of that is by taking everyone on that journey with us and making sure that we are addressing the challenges ahead. I've seen many great initiatives across many organizations that we work with that look to bring diverse groups together in the workplace. And I think that's a really positive activity, but also educating the wider workforce that perhaps are not operating in diverse groups of how people are feeling in those those diverse groups, and trying to make that more inclusive, so everybody's included in that inclusivity aspect. But we're definitely on a positive trend, so we need to continue on that. I mentioned right at the beginning about the 312,000 people that we need to come into industry to make sure we can achieve this net zero and mitigate the risk of climate change. And I meant that, yes, through a diverse workforce. But also, if we do not bring people into industry which are operating at that entry level, if you like, sector entry, and bear in mind it's not just a bottom rung of the ladder type role. You have to think that coming through an apprenticeship program, for instance, if you come through a level 3 engineering apprenticeship program and apprenticeship standards, then you will be going out onto an operational workforce at a pretty good salary, actually, and so therefore you're not starting right at the bottom. And there's that whole earn while you learn aspect to consider when you're thinking about that apprenticeship program, and also the job security and the investment. And you think about how much money that organization is putting into you, and therefore they definitely want to take care of you and take you on that journey to make sure that you become a very valuable asset to them, but also a contributor to the culture of that organization. I think that's a really important element to consider as well. So look, just looking ahead then, the next 5 to 10 years, crikey, who knows what's going to happen in 10 years? AI is on its way. It's here. It's growing incredibly fast. Technology is changing incredibly fast. Where do you see yourselves, your careers, in 5 to 10 years, and not just based on technology, but also based on your current plans, your thinking about where the sector's going? Millie, I'm thinking about hydrogen maybe in the future for the gas networks, and certainly for Jacob and Catherine, for yourself, thinking about so much investment or so much transitioning that's going on at the moment around things like smart grids and technology implementation, and what the grids, what the networks are going to look like in the next 10 years if we do achieve the government's target of net zero. So therefore, really just thinking about what's that future look for you, and where do you want to be? And Millie, can I come to you first on that one?
Mm-hmm. So starting personally, I'd like to see myself as a fully qualified asset surveyor and continuing to develop my technical expertise. I'd like to build on the foundation I've gained through my apprenticeship and become someone who can take on large projects and higher level responsibilities. I'm also really interested in continuing my growth for leadership skills. In the future, I'd love to be in a position where I can mentor new apprentices and support people who are starting out just like I did. The guidance I've received has made such a difference to me, so being able to give that back would be an amazing goal to achieve. And as you said, hydrogen, that's definitely there for the future, and hopefully we can continue to work towards that, to use that within our infrastructure.
Brilliant. Thanks, Millie. Very well put. And Catherine next. Let's go, Catherine. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Catherine?
In 5 years, I would have hoped to, I want to keep developing my skills as a design engineer. There's so much to learn being at the very start of it. I want to be taking on, hopefully, a lot bigger projects and looking at more complex schemes. I'd like to look at, like Millie said, to develop my leadership skills. I think I'd love to be in a position to mentor new apprentices coming in and becoming the support I had coming through the apprenticeship. The sector's ever changing, so I'm excited to see all the changes that are going to happen.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. And I love the ambition. I love the ambition, leadership coming in there. Jacob, finally, yourself.
Yep, I very much the same. I'm hopefully soon looking to become a project manager, and after that, there's senior project manager, director. Options are endless. Just looking to continually develop and increase my skill set and try and remain a valuable asset. If I keep learning, I'm always going to be needed for something, which I think ties in with it. What's the future going to look like? Especially the scary one, as you said, AI. Who knows? I'd like to think in a sort of communication-heavy role where you really need that human aspect, empathy and those kind of traits. When you're dealing with other people, then I'd like to think we should be quite secure in that sense. So, see what the future holds. Progression.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jacob. And again, look, I think you're absolutely right. That future focus, you have to, that technology. I think, I'm not sure who said it, but I don't think AI is going to put people out of their jobs, but people that use AI will probably put people that don't use AI out of jobs. So it's a slightly different way of thinking at it. And there's a lot of people out there, perhaps on the call today, that are looking at doing apprenticeship programs, or maybe they're going to decide they're going to go off to university. And I think the use of AI in that type of environment is super interesting, but also super challenging as well, because AI doesn't always give you the right answer, right? It'll give you a variety of answers and a variety of options, but you do generally have to put a human angle on that and make sure you are checking facts which are going into these things. So I think that's really important. So what I got from that then, in terms of the next 5 years, Millie will come back and check in 5 years' time. So so I think you're going to be head of hydrogen operations. I think is probably where I've kind of landed on that. But Catherine,
well, that'd be fantastic.
You're going to be head of design engineering office, and Jacob, you're the only one that mentioned it. You're going to be the projects program director in your business. So I think you only went for you called out the director role. But look, I think it's great to hear that you are ambitious and you're still excited. And I think it's a great place to be. I remember I used to work in the nuclear industry, and there was a point in time where I think 4 out of the 8 operating nuclear power stations in the UK were being managed by an ex-apprentice. So they'd come through that apprenticeship route, which is often quite surprising to people. But the world is your oysters as an apprentice, and you think as you're coming in and you're starting on your journey, that experience and that knowledge which you gain early on, and understanding what the grassroots of doing a job is hugely important, and it builds a really good solid foundation for you to go on from. So I absolutely wish you all the luck in those career aspirations. We're not finishing, don't worry. I've got a few questions to ask. So we've got a question. I've been out of job 50 months. I was an energy trader with 18 years experience. I'm not sure if there's a question in there, Anthony, if you want to ask something, but do we think there's a potential role in the energy and utilities industry? I would say absolutely there is. I would suggest, I'll show you a link at the end of this, where you can go to a website which advertises a heap of roles which are going on in that side. And bear in mind, something which we haven't mentioned, I suppose, we've talked a little bit about the technical skills, apart from, I guess, Jacob on the project management side. But ultimately, you have an entire business infrastructure which operates within these organizations. So you do have trading, electricity trading, you do have projects, you do have finance functions, you've got HR, you've got administration, you've got engineering, right the way across the spectrum of the types of or elements of business. You've even got marketing and communications, and and perhaps that's a little bit about what we're doing here, is telling people about all the great career opportunities. So please do have a look at some of those opportunities which are out there. And if you are interested, I think have a look at which distribution network or which gas distribution network or which power organization, or if somebody is doing something with battery storage or CCUS in your area with a power plant within energy or within utilities. There's a huge infrastructure being built around the water infrastructure at the moment as well. So there's lots of jobs out there, but please do go and have a look at those. The next question is, I hold an MSc in sustainability, but it's difficult to break into the sector. What's the plans in place to recruit people like me and others who've related knowledge but lack the technical and field experience. I would say, I mean, what does everyone else think about that? I mean, I've kind of got my thoughts, but Jacob, let me come to you. So someone's asking about how do you get in? You know, how do you without that field related experience? I'm assuming. I do apologise. Is it Alilu? I do apologise. That's completely wrong, I'm sure. But yeah, Jacob, shall I come to you first? How does someone get into the sector without that experience?
Aye, so sustainability. We've got, it's not viable for SSEN as a company really to hire. We're more of like a client-based, managerial company, but we work very closely with a lot of other companies. For example, Mott McDonald, massive designers, civil designers, and they have a lot of openings for environmental consultants, sustainability consultants, carbon consultants, all that sort of thing. I'd assume sort of ties into the one big umbrella term, sustainability. So I think all these sort of contractor / consultant companies, I've got really good programs for that kind of thing.
Thanks, Jacob. And Catherine, about yourself, any words of advice?
Yeah, so with especially like at the apprenticeship I'm on, there's like a graduate version. So if you've already done your degree, you can come into it after that. So there's different routes you can come into that give you the experience and the hands-on learning where you don't have to have any like field experience before you come into the roles. So it's definitely worth looking out for them. A lot of the big energy companies and utility companies, especially now with the view to net zero and things like that, will have a sustainability sector within them. So that is such a big advantage that you've got that. So just have a look, see if there's any like graduate opportunities and things in these companies.
Thanks, Catherine. And Millie?
Yeah, I was going to say the same as Catherine. You can have lower level apprenticeships where you start off at, and then graduate apprenticeships as well. But it's not all about experience when it comes to apprenticeships. A lot of the employers look for like transferable skills that you can gain just in everyday life, whether you play sport in a team or you maybe worked in, for example, shops previously where you had that communication with customers. Those are all skills that they look for that will make you more attractive for the role as well.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, I think it's a little bit horses for courses, and looking at the options which are out there, and or the opportunities which are out there, and sometimes almost taking a slightly different tack on something as well, isn't it? Where you've got to perhaps go in at within a role which may not fit you exactly, but actually you've got an excellent set of skills. I think I'll also say in the context of this as well that and it usually comes up on one of these calls, but the right to work in the UK, I think, is going to be really important as well. So if you don't have a sponsoring organisation, I think that's something to focus in on. But absolutely, just being flexible, I think, about what your options are and going out accordingly. Okay, thank you. I've got another question. How do you make yourself stand out? So when you're going through that selection process, how do you make yourself stand out? Millie, I'll come to you first.
I think you just got to really put yourself out there. You've got to just show that you're willing to try everything. I mean, that's what I did in my interviews, and I think it paid off. Show that you're open to learn new skills and go for different opportunities. For example, me doing this is not something I'd ever thought of doing before. But now, coming from where I started, I've developed those skills and I feel a bit more confident now to speak to larger audiences. And I think, as I said, just putting yourself out there and showing that you're willing to try anything. Fantastic.
Thank you. And Catherine, how about yourself?
Yes, I agree with what Millie said there. It's in the interview process. Sometimes they'll be asking you questions that it's not if you don't get the right answer, you're not going to get the job. It's just to see what you know, and if you're willing to ask and put yourself out there, and it's so worth it. Just putting yourself out there, answering everything, showing that the job means something to you or the opportunity means something to you, and just making sure you take every opportunity as it comes.
Fantastic, thank you. And Jacob?
I think I've been on a few interview panels, and just knowing what you're applying for, you'd be surprised the amount of people that interview for roles that they don't really know what it is. They don't know much about the company. So yeah, it's do a bit of research. Make sure you know company values, that kind of thing. What the company does. What your job's going to be. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Your research. Yeah.
Aye, definitely.
Good stuff. Okay. So is there any opportunities for candidates outside the UK visa sponsorship? I think I've mentioned that one, so we'll park that one. And do employers like SSEN consider experienced candidates with 7 years experience, transmission projects, delivery? I'm going to answer that one. I'm absolutely positive they will. But I think if you've got that right to work in the UK, I think that's probably going to be something for squaring away first. I'm currently a PhD student with ISO Health Management, systems using fiber optics, sensors, IoT, AI, and agent model. Crikey, there's a lot of stuff in there. Could I get industry support from the transmission company in the UK? Well, look, have a look at on the website, do a little bit of research and manual on that. There are 3 transmission operators in the UK, National Grid, Scottish Power and SSE. So go and have a look at some of the opportunities which they've got, and I'm sure, absolutely sure, there will be. Can you please refer my LinkedIn profile? I share with relevant recruitment managers. We can have a look at that. What support do you support you receive from mentors and managers? Just a one sentence answer. Catherine, let me come to you on that one. What support do you receive from mentors or managers?
There's just so much support you can't fit into one sentence, really. The main one for me is that they're always willing to listen to you and help you.
Yeah. God, good. Okay, and Jacob?
Always been able to contact them on Teams.
Always available. I'm sure they're delighted about that as well. Millie?
I'm with Jacob. I love a chat on Teams with my manager. But we set up one-to-ones every week, so that's how I communicate with my manager or my mentor.
Okay, good stuff. Would you say there's an extensive travel opportunities to sites both locally and maybe internationally? Jacob, come to you.
Yeah. We have, sometimes you'll meet a contractor. We've got a Sweden trip coming up. We've got sites internationally, Japan, Italy, Brazil. So we quite often, if you're part of one of those projects, you'll be doing a lot of travel. And then based up the north of Scotland, where we've got our transmission sites, you travel up there as well quite often. Go to all the islands and so on. So yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Okay, and Catherine?
Yeah, so not quite as exciting as going to other countries for my role at least. But I've been able to travel all around the northeast. So we able to travel all the way from like Sheffield area up to just below the Scottish borders. So I've been to sites all over there.
Fantastic. And Millie, finally.
Yeah, and funny enough, I'm working away next week down in Plymouth and Teignmouth, but for the role I work in, we work up to North Wales, down to the west of England. So yeah, it's quite a broad area that we travel. Fantastic.
Look, I'm going to have to draw stumps there, I'm afraid, but let me just quickly round up in the minute which I've got left. Can I just thank everybody for joining us? To our panelists as well, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your knowledge and insights as to what it's like becoming an apprentice. Can I ask that if you are interested in looking for that next role, please do go and take a look at our website. There is a link, a QR code there that will take you to Energy and Utility Careers and Jobs. There are currently, I think, over maybe 150 apprenticeship roles which have been advertised on there at the moment. So please do go and take a look and sign up as well. So for alerts, we are running a clean energy jobs campaign next in April, I should say. We'll be doing a webinar every month, or a podcast or a vodcast every month. So please do sign up to those and hear much more about what's going on in the sector and about potential career opportunities which are out there. So nothing else for me to say. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.